What's up and welcome to what's in my camera bag for 2020 and 2021 for my very run and gun style majority fitness shooting type of work. In this video, not only are we going to talk about all of this gear and what I find to be the best for my style, but I also want to take a look at some of the differences between the Sony A7S III, which I'm shooting on right now, and the Sony A7 III in terms of color science. That way I know there's a lot of people out there trying to decide which camera to get, what's the difference for video. Hopefully this helps you make some of those decisions. I also have even a slight and small surprise about this on the far right, so we'll get to what that is and why I think everybody needs something like that little stone over there in their camera bag. First things first, yes, this is the worst, well, the audio is fantastic, but this is the worst microphone to use for some type of gear review, what's in my camera bag, because it takes up a ton of space in the frame. The overhead cam can't see through it, so we're missing that nice symmetrical overhead shot, but I want to talk about one of the pieces of gear that's in my kit for good reason this year. Normally I would boom that and we wouldn't have this mic in the way, but we do, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But the audio is clean, right? And next, no, my very first YouTube video is not sponsored by this brand. I don't know, I'm so new that I don't even know if you're allowed to say the brand. Anyways, but 2 pro tips when you order your insert favorite coffee here. First tip, number 1, order a grande or I think a medium coffee, but in a venti cup or a large cup. That way you keep your shoes clean and don't spill in your car, so extra room. Because if you order it with room, they typically don't leave the room, and sometimes they sneak a little bit of extra coffee in there too. Next thing, this stopper right here sneaks right in the side. Nice thing about that is A, you might need it for later, B, you don't have to look for a trash can, and C, it works for a stirrer. Maybe you want to throw some cinnamon in, maybe you want to throw some adaptogen mushrooms in there, if you're like me, but likely some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyways, nothing like that first sip. All right, we got to get a couple more things out of the way. First thing, right now, yes, being shot on the Sony A7S III. I also have an A7 III right here, and the overhead cam is also an A7 III. I'll do my best not to call the A7 III the S3 or the S3 the A7 III. I'll do my best. If I get 100%, I'll be the only one on YouTube who got that right. I have all of these set to the exact same picture profile. They'll be set to the exact same exposure. The only difference is going to be lenses. Overhead cam is using a Tamron 17-28. I'm not going to talk too much more about that. This is going to be using the Sony 24-70 2.8 G Master, and what's currently being shot on the Sony A7S III is the Sony 16-35 f2.8 G Master. Incredibly similar lenses, so outside of those difference in lenses, there shouldn't be really too much here to talk about. First thing, cameras. This is, as mentioned a few times, the Sony A7 III. This was my very first real camera. I have a phone like all of us, but this is my very first real camera, and I did not have the 24-70 2.8 as my first lens on here. I grew into that, but this is my very first camera, and it's going to stay in my kit for the rest of this year and all of next year unless the A7 IV comes out. But I'm super happy with this A7 III because it's going to be used for stills, which it does a fantastic job of. It'll also be a B cam, like for today. It'll be a B cam when I need to have an extra angle for video. Now, let's do our first switch in between the Sony A7S III and the Sony A7 III and take a look at those differences in the color science. I'm looking forward to seeing these files myself, so let's switch it out. All right, so now we're on the A7 III. How does it look? What are the differences? Again, I'm curious myself to get this into post and take a look at some of the differences. Hopefully I got the framing as close to the same as possible. I'm still new, so keep that in mind, and so I'll give myself the right to continue to learn on this channel, which brings me to a point, is that I don't know everything. I'm still fairly new at this. I'm a couple of years in. I've done a lot of shooting. I've done a ton of learning. But I expect to learn more. I expect to learn more through teaching. I believe I have some things to teach and things that I can help out with. But if I get something wrong or you know something better, put it in the comments below, because I think we can all learn from each other, and I look forward to learning from those who know more than me and maybe come across this video myself. Anyways, the A7S III is going to be my main shooter. well, for the rest of 2020, but I have a hard time seeing this coming out of the kit in 2021. Initial reviews, this thing is phenomenal. I've been shooting with it for 2 weeks. I did get it very early. I was very fortunate and lucky to be able to do that. Though I initially think this thing is fantastic, I'm not gonna give a full review today. That's not the intention of talking about the kit. I do wanna do a review of this, but I want a couple more weeks of heavily shooting with it to be able to give something that I feel is a little more in-depth and in tune with what I would like to see from a review. But there's also a ton of good reviews that are already out there from some stellar and smart people. But yes, this is going to be the main video shooter, A7S3 video. A7 III is going to be stills, and it's got the 16-35 f2.8 G Master lens on here. And although that 16-35 is likely going to be the lens that I shoot with the most, I do have a couple of other lenses here to talk about as well. So getting into lenses, I've got two other ones here that are both primes outside of the two zooms. First one is a 21.8G. It's nice to have this wide focal range with that lower 1.8. I do get into a lot of low light, so that's nice to have for that specific reason, but creatively having that 1.8 can just create a really nice image. All right, now before we get into this next lens here, let's switch back to the S3. All right, so we're back on the S3, and I looked at some of the footage briefly just on the display. I don't know, the A7 III looks a little more magenta, A7S III looks a little more green. Maybe there's other subtle differences, I can't tell yet. Now, second lens is the Zeiss Batis 85 f1.8. This has been in my bag the longest as far as lenses go. I like having the 1.8 for the same reason that I like having the 1.8 on that 20 for the low light, as well as some of that nice creamy bokeh that we all love, but this also is such a fantastic B-roll lens. I fall into the camp of nice, smooth, and cool B-roll with an 85mm and the effect that you get out of that. It also is image stabilized, so between the image stabilization on this plus the active stabilization of the S3, just a really nice combo to have. Moving into audio gear, first thing is going to be the Rode VideoMic NTG. I did put the Dead Cat on here. You have to get it after. It doesn't come with it to help out with some wind noise reduction, doing some shooting outside. But besides all the fantastic things about this microphone for its main purpose of being on top of the camera and picking up really good audio, I also do boom it in this studio, which it does work extremely well. Not quite as nice as this, but pretty close. And lastly, I like this because it's so easy just to throw on the computer for like a Zoom call, right? So you can get better audio than what the computer's producing just by plugging this in and putting on a pretty small tripod. So incredibly versatile. It is also USB-C for charging, which it's the little things. You don't have to worry about batteries. You don't have to worry about having a different type of cable. It just charges with USB-C, which most of this stuff does. And I say most of this stuff does because this next piece of audio gear is the Sennheiser AVX system I am running, which this is not going to get picked up on the camera. Maybe it will if I get it super close and the autofocus stops tracking my face. How are we doing? But I'm running the MKE2 lav mic on the Sennheiser AVX system, as I mentioned. I've been through a ton of different lav mic systems. I don't love lav mics. If you couldn't guess it, I technically should be using one right now. It'd be better than this big obstruction in the way, but I just don't love using lav mics. Never quite seem to put them exactly how I want them, but they are incredibly handy for that run and gun style. Shoot a lot of fitness stuff, so these can be really nice for that as well. But this is the best, hands down, the best lav mic system that I have come across in terms of quality. You can charge it just with a cable. It's not USB-C. That would be fantastic. It's that micro USB, so that kind of sucks. It's the only thing I need the micro USB for in my entire kit. It's like 4 years old though, so hopefully Sennheiser, if you're listening, USB-C would be incredible. But fantastic lav mic system. I have used the Rode Wireless Go. I think I even have one around here somewhere. I hated it. I might be one of the only ones. It's very simple. It's tiny. It charges via USB-C, which is awesome. I could never get the audio not to clip on it. And I know I'm new, but I understand audio well enough to know how to bring my settings down to have that not clip, and I could not get it not to clip. Tried a bunch of different mics on it, just never worked out. So I don't love the Rode Wireless Go. All right, for accessories, we're just talking about all of these odds and ends that are floating around out here that we haven't talked about yet. First one, not being cables, though I might surprise you with how important cables actually are, is the iPad. They have crammed so much technology into these. They're capable of things that laptops didn't used to be capable of 5 years ago. They're incredible, and I use it as a notebook. Literally, I keep all of my notes in here, all of my to-dos, all of my ideas, everything just lives in here. Nice to have, very compact. Next, while we're on the Apple train, is going to be AirPods, and these, besides obviously listening to music and taking calls, it is really important to listen to the final versions of videos on something similar to what people are going to be listening to it on, and make sure you got it just right. So, and the last two Apple products, there's probably more snuck in somewhere. Well, my computer, which is taking the audio right now, it's just a 2019 MacBook Pro, pretty specced out for video. I love it. Only way I'll probably get the new ones is if they're able to process H.265 footage that the S3 cranks out. I did find a really good workflow with the S3. Some people struggle with the files coming out of there and actually editing those. That'll be a later video that I'll do about my workflows and how I'm able to edit it pretty smoothly. This is the Apple Thunderbolt USB-C cable. They're like 40 bucks. Completely excessive for the price. I think I have like 3 of them, but for good reason. The problem that I found with these drives is that the cables that they come with get loose. And where that's a problem is that if you're editing on the train or on a flight, even sometimes at home, and someone knocks it, you could lose your whole project or corrupt some files or lose your data. That's a huge problem. I don't know why those cables come loose. It drives me nuts. But these ones, they click in, and they actually, sometimes it's annoying how hard they are to actually pop out of there, so, which is a good thing. I'll take that annoyance all day over losing footage. So these are high quality, which is nice, but more importantly, I've had these for a couple of years and they don't come unsnapped. They don't lose their tightness for their connection, so I think that's pretty valuable. For a card reader, I just use the Apple SD reader. Same reason, that USB-C connection hasn't really come loose on me, so that's pretty nice as well. And while we're on the storage topic, let's grab these 3, which seems excessive. Let's grab these 3 drives, 1, 2, and 3. Yep, not the right microphone. All right, first one, let's talk about this LaCie. I don't know what it is. LaCie something, but I like LaCie products for drives. They tend to be consistent. I haven't had too many issues with them, but this is the one that I keep for, it's a terabyte, and all of my photos live on here. I don't put any video on here. I try to keep this stuff as separate as possible. Helps out my organization and workflow, so photos only. And next is this LaCie Rugged Pro, a terabyte as well. I keep all of my videos on here. This thing is blazingly fast. I edit from it, which is a big perk for having a really fast drive. Problem is the price of it. They're extremely expensive, but from what I've seen so far, the quality is really high. So all my video work that I'm currently working on lives there. The old files get pushed onto a bigger, more ugly drive that's not portable. And lastly, the Samsung T5. I think this is the best value drive you can possibly get. But if my photos are on here, my videos on here, what's on this one? What's on this one is all my resources. So all my digital assets that take up space live on here. Presets, overlays, music, graphics, all that stuff. So that's how I keep my stuff organized between 3 drives. Tripod, I'm going with the Peak Design carbon fiber travel tripod. They hit a grand slam with this thing. Besides being incredibly light and packable, it's just consistent, which I like a lot. I've gone through a couple different versions of tripods, and this is hands down the best one that I've used. And I guess it's nice too because it fits this whole black on black on black on black theme that's going on in the kit. So nice one there, really dig that. Multitool. I can't tell you how many times, it's probably not picking up on the gray on gray. Let's just give that to the overhead cam. That should do its job. Multi-tool, I really can't express how many times I've been in situations where this thing has come in handy, whether it's building an overhead rig or swapping out some gear on a camera. They're cheap, they're important to have in the bag, they take up 0 space. This is the small rig one, there's a bunch of them out there, but camera multi-tools, you'll never realize how much you need them until you have it. Lighting, Aperture MC. I think a lot of people probably have this because of how good it is. You can change colors. I can go from Kelvin all the way to different like actual saturations and colors and brightnesses. But this is really cool to have, especially like on the road. Try to have it make sense here in the frame, but Yeah, you can see that. There we go, something like that. But if you ever want to just add in like a quick accent light, like that's a fantastic way to do it. It's also magnetic, which comes in handy. And like you already have learned, is it charges via USB-C. So nothing but good things there. It also charges wirelessly. So if you have like a Qi charger, just let's say you pop it on, bang, now it's charging. Also, lenses that also charge things. Why have we not thought of this yet? I don't use a neck strap. I just think they take up too much space, and I never really walk around with it hanging off my neck. Maybe I'll get into that someday. But these wrist straps, 1, 2, right? And then it connects to the camera, which is what's really nice about these Peak Design accessories, is they just literally snap right in. So for me, it just gives me, if I'm walking around, an extra piece of security while you're walking around with expensive gear, just knowing that it's not going to fall off. So Peak Design wrist strap. All right, we're getting to the end. I got a couple more things. We'll talk about those in a second. Besides being a functional tool, it's also fun. It snaps out like that, but just a card reader, extremely cheap on Amazon. When I was early on making videos, my colors were never right until I learned how to dial in my white balance, and this was a big help in being able to do that. So having a gray card on me at all times, really helpful. All right, 2 pieces of storage here. Those of you who recognize, there's actually 3 that we'll talk about, 1, 2, 3. Again, not the right choice. First one's just going to be this battery organizer. Those of you, magnets, just love it. Those of you who recognize the logo, it's a Nomadic Peter McKinnon edition. I do have the backpack as well, but it's not actually the backpack that I use. I'm going to be doing a comparison on backpacks here shortly, and you'll learn about that. But these storage things are fantastic. But yeah, magnets. Smart. But just stores batteries. It has stickers in here too that you can put a sticker on one side. Hopefully that's picking up. Put a sticker on one side so that when a sticker's up, you know that battery's dead. And when it's down, you know it's good. So it's small things that save time. And for the SD organizer, I was going to say there's no SDs in here, but yeah, there is one. No SDs because I'm literally using all of them between these 3 cameras right now. But I use the SONY A7SIII. I don't know what the exact model is, or if you can even... If I can get close enough, there we stop autofocus. There we go. Focus on this. But the Sony A7SIII SDs, and I like to stay native with Sony gear. I just think it's more consistent. Had to get those very specific and pretty expensive cards for the S3 footage, the V90s, so I can capture some of that 4K 120 and higher frame rate stuff. Last piece of storage here is just going to be the filter holder organizer. The first one I have in here is actually just a UV filter. This is the B&W UV Haze MRC Nano XS Pro Digital. I have no idea. If you have nice expensive glass and you put something cheap in front of it, it kind of ruins the effect. So having a nice UV filter does make sense, but why even use it? It's not really, in my opinion, to block out any actual UV. But if I'm shooting something in a gym and there's barbells flying around and I'm getting like a tight shot, my camera's really close to, let's say, a moving weight. If it hits my front element on my lens, I'm going to be pretty upset because that's a couple $1,000s to replace that. This is like $100. So it's protecting the front element. I don't use it super often, but it comes in handy when I do need it. I have 2 ND filters in here. First one is this Polar Pro McKinnon Variable ND. I love this thing, but I didn't use it too much with like the A7 III because I didn't shoot in log too often because I don't think this camera handled log very well. I can never quite get the colors right. But I'm now shooting in S-Log 3 a lot. Well, not exactly now because I know we're doing the whole picture profile thing, but I'm shooting in log a lot more on the S3. So these variable ND filters have come in handy with being able to keep my exposure where I need it, especially with shooting some of those lower apertures. And then I picked up this Freewell, which in my opinion does as good of a job as that McKinnon Polar Pro one that I just showed you. But this one's like half the cost, maybe even a little bit less. So I like this one a lot, and yeah, more magnets, which is pretty cool. So those are my ND filters and UV filters, and this nice case keeps things organized and nice and protected. So we have come to this last thing that I said I might surprise you with, and why everyone needs a stone or something like a stone in their camera bag. Something that's just a little bit unique to you. We all have something small that we could stuff in our camera bag, and I'll tell you the very brief story on this. My wife and I were in Sedona, which there's these crystal shops everywhere, and she's kind of into that stuff. So we went into every single one of them. And anyways, she told me at one point, she's like, just grab a stone, go find one that kind of speaks to you. You can't read the card though. That was the kicker. You can't read about the stone. You just got to go find one that speaks to you. So I came across this one, grayscale, shocker. I thought it was a cool looking stone, kind of grabbed it, and I told her, like, yeah, this one, I like this one. It's speaking to me. I didn't know what it was saying, but it was speaking to me. And so she said, okay, cool. So she said, grab the card and read about it. I'm not going to read everything on here, but one of the things that it says is promotes development of creativity, which I think was kind of cool. Out of all these millions and there weren't millions. Out of these hundreds of stones that were in this place, I picked the one that it promoted development of creativity at a time when I was just starting out with cameras and getting into this as a hobby. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing, and this has stayed in my kit since then. You can always find a small pocket to stuff small things like that mean something to you. That's it. That's all the gear. We've gone through it. But I'm actually going to switch over to shooting S-Log3 to wrap up this video because I can't help myself. I've been shooting these neutral profiles to compare some of these images that come out of these two cameras, but having the S3 just sitting there, knowing S-Log3 is in there, I got to switch over and close out. One sec. So much better. So yeah, S-Log3, couldn't help myself, and the majority of this channel is going to be shot in S-Log3, so why not close out with popping over into this picture profile. If this was at all valuable to you, go ahead and tap that thumbs up button down below. And my name is Sean DeWispelaire. I don't think I mentioned that in the front. I'm on the executive leadership team of an international fitness brand, but I'm a part-time creative, mostly shooting fitness things, but this channel is going to be all about the creative skill. So whether you're into video editing, photo editing, shooting videos, shooting photos, gear, whatever it is that's around that creative realm, this channel is going to be dedicated to that. It's always going to have a bit of a fitness feel. But if that's something that you're interested in, go and hit that subscribe button, because there's going to be more videos similar to this one coming out on a regular basis. But I'm going to close out. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. See ya.